Welcome to our series on Ireland's trees. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the mighty beech tree. These fantastic trees that are so well known around Ireland, and you can find them from the top to the bottom of the country, are a tree that's been here for a long time, but are not a native tree. They're a tree that were brought here by humans, brought here by us. The smooth bark, with its twisting forms and shapes as they grow up, has inspired all sorts of art. It's inspired poetry and it's inspired architecture, right from the Gothic big cathedrals to all sorts of others that we see. Walking through a beech forest and you do feel like you're in the cathedral of nature. The beech tree, with its big, heavy leaves, is deciduous. It drops those leaves every year and has very smooth, very elegant bark. They can grow into a massive tree, as you can see by this specimen behind me here. And they're trees that tend to take over a place if conditions are right, if soil conditions are right, if drainage is right. They can really dominate the landscape. They're a tree that grows to a huge size, despite the fact that they've quite shallow roots. And with those roots and with that size, they completely take over and dominate everything that's around. All the other plants need to be able to deal with the shaded conditions that beech puts down. Their heavy leaves suppress growth underneath the ground, which suppresses rival trees. So beech forests are often places that are quite clear without a huge amount of undergrowth, and as a result are very beautiful, very elegant. So to identify any tree, always recommend to feel the leaf, because the feel of the leaf will tell you so much about it. The beech leaves are kind of simple in shape, a little bit longer than they are wide, without any obvious serration around the edge. They have quite strong veins down the back, but the real thing about them is the feel. They feel like a piece of plastic. They nearly don't feel natural. And it's that heavy beech leaf that gives them an advantage in so many ways. One of the advantages is even after the leaf has finished its main job, and when the leaf falls down onto the ground, it suppresses the growth of all the others that are trying to grow there, because it's quite slow to rot with that heavy plasticky feel. Another way, of course, to identify the beech is the gorgeous grey bark. It's very smooth, doesn't support a huge amount of life. You'll see small little patches of lichens and you'll see small patches of mosses, and sometimes, like this one behind us, a little bit of ivy growing up. But quite often the bark is as smooth and light grey as can be. You can see the buds being formed on this beech tree, and inside every bud is the leaf for next year, carefully wrapped up, a miniature form of what I have in my hand here. Wrapped up inside here, waiting for next spring for when the conditions are right. It'll be pumped full of sap and pumped full of chlorophyll, and it'll emerge as this bright green, nearly see-through, very beautiful, very delicate leaf, only for the first couple of weeks. Emerges around late April, early May or so. But then, over the next couple of weeks, the toxins will be pumped into it, which protect it from so many bugs that are trying to eat up these leaves. And they will go that slightly darker green and have that tougher feel. And they will keep that all the way up until autumn time, when they start to produce that beautiful golden yellow and brown colour that they have before they're dropped to the ground. So in the winter time, it helps to be able to identify a beech by looking at the buds. They have these little rolled up, pointy, quite sharp at the end, pointy little buds, which are like little mini cigars rolled up at the end of each branch tip. And of course they'll have dropped all their leaves at that stage. But they will also often have the seed cup. So inside this will be a couple of little seeds. And those seeds were growing and developing all year. And now as that has opened, the seeds have fallen down to the ground, most of which will be eaten up by squirrels and birds and mice and whatnot. But some will be stashed by those same creatures. And the ones that are stashed will emerge into next year's beech and continue on the next generation. Beech trees, like a lot of trees that have large seeds, have what's called a mast year. And mast is just an old English word for seed, so a seed year. Once every few years, they will drop an enormous amount of seeds. And that enormous amount of seeds, all of the little creatures that like to eat their seeds and rely on those seeds in the autumn time, they can't keep up with that. So those seeds get stashed all throughout the forest and beyond and become the next generation that's growing up. So for one of the biggest broadleaf trees that grow in the Irish landscape, they don't live nearly as long as, say, an oak tree, or potentially as long as an oak tree can. A beech tree will live 150 to 200 years, all being well. With those shallow roots, they can tend to get knocked over in storms a little bit quicker than some other trees. But oftentimes, because of their beauty, because of their shape and their form, people go to great efforts to try and conserve beech. And you can see in this specimen, if you look high up in the branches, some of the limbs have been bound together by straps to try and hold it all together. You can see in the hollow parts, one hollow part has been bricked up to try and stop any kind of disease from where a limb fell. You can see the scar tissue around it, but then the bricks were put in as an effort to try and protect the tree. Of course, as trees get older and they start to rot from the inside out, supporting a lot of different funguses that will start eating them up and breaking them down, even though they're alive and healthy and well on the outside. Those inside chambers, those hollow parts, they give shelter for all sorts of animals. Bats will often be found roosting inside trees. And this tree behind us has something very special. High up above my head is a native Irish honeybee colony. And native Irish honeybees are endangered. They're in bother because they don't have enough old trees. They don't have enough places for them to be able to go and successfully nest. But these bees have found a great place. There's plenty of gardens and plenty of shrubbery around us to be able to provide the food for the bees, the nectar for the bees. And then that little hollow up there, that hollow part of the tree is providing wonderful shelter for the bees. So the wood is an important material and has been an important material for humans for as long as they've been around beech trees. Beech has a very dense, fine grain. So it's very smooth grain, so it's reasonably easy to work with. It's a kind of grain that you can make all sorts of things out of, from fine pieces of guitars to furniture that we've all sat on and been amongst, to all sorts of kitchen utensils, tool handles and the rest of it. It's a very, very versatile and useful wood, and of course burns very well as well. So beech trees, even though they're not native to Ireland, have been here for a very long time, since at least the Normans, and perhaps brought in at an earlier time than that. And of course they've been such an important tree between their seed, between their wood as a raw material in so many different ways, by the shelter that they provide, and as a thing of beauty and a thing of inspiration for art, for poetry, all throughout the ages. There's around about a dozen or a little over a dozen beech trees in the wild across the world, but there's also at least a dozen more cultivars, ones that have been bred and hybridized with other beech trees, like the beautiful copper beech that you'll see behind me. So beech trees, for as long as humans have been around them, have been inspiring us, have been giving us shelter, giving us shade, and have been a thing of beauty.